Heartwarming discovery. The millionaire's laugh turned to shock when he saw my $1 million balance. Jake felt a tight knot in his chest as he wiped the grease from his hands, surrounded by the familiar sounds of clanging metal and the comforting scent of motor oil. He'd been struggling to juggle the demands of being a mechanic, raising his little sister Ellie, and keeping an eye on their ailing mother. But he leaned into the grind, believing that hard work would pay off. The hum of the old garage was punctuated by the laughter of neighborhood kids outside, reminding him of why he fought tirelessly. One sunny Saturday, he watched Ellie dart across the worn-out wooden benches outside the diner where the community gathered every weekend. The smell of sizzling bacon mixed with the sound of chatter filled the air, a hallowed tradition, grounding them all. She wasn't just his sister, she was his motivation. Jake thought back to the moments they spent at the diner, their home away from home, where laughter and stories blended together, forming an unbreakable bond within their small town. Then came Ted, rolling in with his brand new truck, looking like he owned the place. He scoffed at Jake's modest garage, clearly believing it was unworthy of his attention. The tension was palpable, a chasm dividing the wealthy newcomer from the proud working-class folk. Conversations erupted at the diner about who belonged and who didn't, each word weighed down with simmering sentiment. And it happened one fateful afternoon. An unfamiliar car rolled into Jake's garage, a vintage beauty, gleaming like it had just come from another era. As Jake approached, eyes wide and heart racing, he felt the townsfolk's whispers rise like a tide. This car wasn't just a car. It was a beacon of potential, an unexplained link to something bigger. Just a routine fix, he assured himself as he opened the hood to assess the situation. He never expected what he would find. Tangled wires led to a hidden compartment, revealing the astonishing truth that would change everything. A $1 million balance tied to the car's VIN. Jake's heart raced with disbelief, emotions swirling like a storm inside him. He was the town mechanic, the kind-hearted boy striving to make ends meet. This could lift his family out of the darkness, or throw them headfirst into chaos. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. The news of the $1 million find spread like wildfire, igniting shock and awe across town. Jake became the center of attention, but he never sought the limelight. Ted, too, was caught in the ripple effect, faced with the neighbors he'd dismissed as lesser. They swarmed Jake with congratulations, eyes glowing with dreams rekindled. But beneath all the excitement was a brewing storm. The values of his tight-knit community, now called into question. Friendship and kinship felt frail under the glare of newfound wealth. Jake's mind raced as he faced the potential for a brighter future. But he worried what that spotlight could mean for his relationships, those built on trust and shared history. Questions loomed, as whispers of envy and obligation surrounded him. As he stood at the crossroads of fortune and fear, he wondered, could he stay true to his humble roots, or would greed fracture the very bonds of love he cherished? How can a heart rich in kindness ever measure up to a bank account? Jake stood there, heart pounding as the reality of the situation sunk in. $1 million. It felt surreal, like one of those dreams where you suddenly wake up and realize it was all just your imagination. But this was real. The commemorative feelings of pride and ambition now clashed violently with uncertainty. He could feel eyes on him, heavy and expectant, and among the chatter he spotted Ted. The smugness on Ted's face grated against Jake's nerves. What are you going to do with all that cash, Jake? Ted called out casually, but there was an edge. It felt like a taunt, as if to say he couldn't possibly handle it. Jake opened his mouth to speak, but found no words. In that moment, he felt weighty shadows of doubt creeping into his mind. Was he ready for this? A broken-down car in a garage was his reality. Now he was a millionaire? He just wanted to support Ellie, who was peeking around the corner of the garage, eyes wide with curiosity. She wasn't aware of the magnitude of the discovery. To her, it was just a slow Saturday. Jake. Ellie's voice broke through his thoughts. Can we have pizza for dinner? Can we go to the corner diner? Her innocent request sparked a yearning inside him. And he smiled, fighting against the flood of chaos. Of course, kiddo. Just let me finish up here, and we'll head out. But deep down, Jake knew the simple pleasures of pizza nights might soon change. He didn't want wealthy dinners and fancy restaurants. He loved their rituals, the neighborhood diner, the greasy fries, and the flurry of laughter shared across a table. As he composed himself, second glances from the townsfolk, those friends who once laughed with him over coffee, shifted subtly, morphing into something more complicated. Sympathy? Jealousy? The thin line between admiration and envy was razor-sharp now. Jake felt the pull of two worlds at war. The comfortable clamor of camaraderie, and the glaring spotlight of expectation. Before he knew it, a small group approached him, laughter faltering as they drew in close. "We've all heard the news," one of them said, a neighbor from down the street. $1 million, huh? You could really help out your mom and Ellie with that kind of money. Yeah. Another chimed in, maybe you could buy the old community center and fix it up. The suggestion echoed in Jake's mind. He thought about Alice, the elderly woman who ran bingo nights there. It was a gathering space for so many townsfolk. Jake nodded, his heart racing. That would be, but before he could finish the thought, Ted stepped forward, his tone condescending. Whoa there. Don't jump too far ahead, Jake. You've got to be careful with money like that. It doesn't change who you are. Jake clenched his fists. Ted's words landed heavy on him. He didn't want to forget who he was. But how do you keep your roots when you feel the tug of branches reaching for the sky? As whispers of Jake's newfound fortune pattered like a rainstorm around the diner, one thing became crystal clear. He couldn't let the cash become a wall between him and the people he loved. Maybe we should have a meeting, Jake finally spoke up, his voice steady. We'll discuss what the town needs together. The crowd reacted, murmuring with curiosity. But what troubles awaited him when he opened that door? With tension coiling tightly around his heart, Jake wondered if stepping into a new life would mean leaving behind everything that mattered. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows on the pavement, he gazed longingly into the distance. Could he rally this town to use the money for good, or would it tear them apart instead? What if the weight of expectation threatened to crush him before he even got the chance to choose? Jake felt the weight of the crowd pressing down on him. Conversations swirled around him, but all he could hear was his heart racing. How could a simple dollar sign cause such chaos in his life? Ellie was still there, grinning under the dull glow of the garage light, blissfully unaware of the complexities that now tangled his thoughts. Ache. She skipped a little closer, her ponytail bouncing. Can we go to the corner diner now? I'm starving. Her enthusiasm was infectious, but Jake felt a swell of conflicting emotions. He wanted to keep their routine, to hold on to those simple joys. Yet the dollar signs loomed, heavy as bricks in his pockets. Sure, kiddo. Just give me a second, he replied, forcing a smile. As he turned back to the group of neighbors, he caught Ted smirking, that irritatingly cocky grin plastered on his face. The taunts of too much, too fast echoed in his mind. Would Ted always be lurking in the background, waiting to remind him of what he didn't know? A sharp intake of breath drew his attention back to the crowd. We're so proud of you, Jake, a woman said, her voice thick with emotion. It struck him. Their joy was real but tangled with expectance. A mixture he couldn't quite decipher. I just want to make sure I do this right, for all of us, he said, attempting to redirect the conversation. Let us brainstorm ideas, see what the town really needs. He could feel their eyes fixated on him, uncertain yet curious. Everyone wanted something, a slice of the pie. He didn't want to be that guy. He wanted to be the one who helped. The chatter began to rise. People were leaning in, discussing all the possibilities. The old community center, the new basketball court, maybe they could finally have a park that wasn't just a patch of grass. Hope blossomed, and Jake felt that familiar warmth creeping back into his heart. Yeah, I mean, if you really thought about it, Jake, you could make a significant impact. Another voice chimed in, earning nods from those around him. He swallowed hard. Let us not get ahead of ourselves, Ted interjected, crossing his arms. Just remember, handling that kind of money isn't a game. The tension snapped back. Jake's stomach twisted in anger, frustration bursting through him. Ted had become the shadow that loomed over his success, and he wouldn't let that happen. And remember, Ted, you can choose to be part of the solution or just sit back and watch. I'm trying to make a difference here. The murmurs that followed told him he'd struck a chord. Some were surprised, others excited. Ted's smirk faltered, and Jake felt a flicker of triumph ignite within him. Maybe he didn't have to be alone in this. Ellie tugged his arm, pulling him back to the present. Pizza, Jake. Please. Her bright smile broke through, and suddenly, the weight on his shoulders felt a little lighter. Okay, let us go. The diner is calling our names, he said, ruffling her hair as they headed out. He wiped his mind clean of the uncertainty, and focused on her laughter. Maybe it was that blending of worlds he needed to figure out. As they walked toward the diner, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that he had just stepped into uncharted territory. The uncertainty lingered, but hopeful visions of community filled his thoughts. What if they achieved something amazing together? Jake glanced back at the group, some still watching him with excitement, others with skepticism. He knew this was just the beginning, but the question haunted him. Could he truly turn this new fortune into something that would unite rather than divide? With the warm glow of the diner lights ahead, Jake's heart raced with renewed determination. What would it take to stand strong against the challenges ahead? As they stepped into the corner diner, the familiar sense of fried food and baked goods wrapped around them like a warm hug. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead. As a small bell chimed when they entered, Jake took a deep breath, letting the ambience wash over him, almost drowning out the weight of the outside world. Ellie's eyes sparkled with excitement as she slid onto a booth, bouncing slightly on the worn vinyl seats. I'll have the biggest slice you can find, she declared, her small hands gesturing animatedly. Jake chuckled, her innocence a refreshing balm against his worries. Pizza it is, and 1 order of garlic knots, he promised, glancing at the menu but knowing precisely what she wanted. As he approached the counter, he caught sight of Betty, the diner's owner, her white apron dusted with flour. She looked up, her eyes warm. Hey there, Jake. Heard about your big news. How does it feel to be a superstar? She teased, her hands busy kneading dough for the pizzas. It feels heavy, he admitted, scratching the back of his head. She raised an eyebrow, sensing more than he said. Just remember, honey, people are behind you. They want the best for this town, she said, patting his arm as he moved to place their order. As he waited, he couldn't help but replay the day's events in his mind. The murmurs of support had felt like a double-edged sword, excitement intertwined with pressure. Thoughts of Ted shot through his mind again. Just how much could he take before it all became too much? His stomach pinched, and he took a steadying breath. Maybe he needed to lean on others, not just carry everything himself. There was strength in community, too. Or at least that's what he hoped for. His pizza arrived, the cheese bubbling and fragrant. Ellie dove in with glee, making little happy squeals as she delighted in each bite. In this moment, surrounded by laughter and comfort food, the weight on Jake's shoulders started to lift, if only just a little. Did you see how excited everyone was earlier? Maybe I can really make a difference, Ellie, he said, his voice thick with emotion. She nodded, eyes wide and serious, but all he could see was unadulterated trust in her gaze. Of course, Jake. You're the best, she chimed, her words bubbling with unwavering confidence. It filled him with warmth. But as they settled into their meal, the satisfaction of the moment was interrupted by a familiar voice. The unmistakable shuffle of shoes came with the flick of the door swinging open. Ted stepped inside, the light casting shadows on his sharp features. Jake stiffened, the memory of their earlier confrontation fresh. Look who it is. The town hero and his little sidekick, Ted sneered, his voice oozing mockery. Ellie's joy dimmed, her eyes flitting between the two men, confused. Not today, Ted, Jake said, squaring his shoulders. He wouldn't let the negativity seep into their precious moment. If you have something to say, say it. Otherwise, let us enjoy our pizza. Ted sauntered over, his confidence palpable. Just looking out for the little guy that's rich coming from you. Jake shot back, the simmering frustration boiling over. Around them, whispers began to rise in the diner, people drawn to the tension. Maybe everyone isn't as impressed with your plans as you think they are, Ted sneered. The words hit Jake like a blow, but instead of crumbling, he felt something ignite. Was it resolve? Determination? Maybe a bit of both. Wouldn't he back down? Not for Ellie, not for anyone. As he stared Ted down, the atmosphere shifted. Ellie squeezed his hand under the table, her small grip grounding him. It was a reminder of why he was fighting for her, for the town. As Ted turned to leave, a flicker of doubt crossed his face, but it was gone too quick to catch. Jake's heart raced, a cocktail of fear and exhilaration. Would this really be the battle for his vision? He knew then, at that moment, what he truly wanted. To bring hope to the community, no matter how daunting the challenge felt. But just as he began to collect his thoughts, he spotted a familiar face. Hovering at the diner entrance. Old Mr. Hargrove stood there, his brows furrowed in deep contemplation. Jake's stomach dropped at the sight. Mr. Hargrove was not one to be easily swayed. What did he want? Jake could feel the urgency of the moment pulse in the air. Would he come to support him? Or was this news about to become something else entirely? Jake's heart thundered in his chest as Mr. Hargrove stepped inside. The weight of his presence filling the diner like a storm cloud. The room's chatter faded, replaced by a palpable tension. Jake wiped his sweaty palms on his jeans, reminding himself to stay calm. He could feel Ellie's small hand still resting in his, providing a flicker of reassurance. Mr. Hargrove, Jake said, forcing a smile as he gestured toward an empty seat across the table. We're just having some pizza. Care to join us? The older man hesitated, glancing at Ellie's innocent smile, then at the pizza that sat steaming. No, I'm not here to eat, he replied slowly, his voice gravelly. I came to talk. Jake's stomach knotted tighter. This was it, the moment that could change everything. He took a deep breath, inviting Mr. Hargrove to speak. I've been hearing the buzz around town, Mr. Hargrove started, crossing his arms over his plaid shirt. Thought it was time I came to see what all this fuss was about. Ellie looked between them, her expression confused but trusting, a reflection of Jake himself. What do you think? Jake asked, hoping to draw Mr. Hargrove into a discussion. I want to help the community. We can do more together than apart. The old man nodded, his expression unreadable. You've got ambition, kid. But ambition alone won't get you far. People have their doubts. I know, Jake replied, his voice steady. I faced that doubt today. Ted's been spreading negativity. Mr. Hargrove scoffed. Ted is not the issue. He is only a symptom of a much larger problem. People are scared, Jake. They're concerned about the future and how your project could affect it. Jake felt a spark of anger at Ted's name, but quickly buried it. Do you think my plans are wrong? I want to build a community, not divide it. The older man leaned closer, scrutiny in his gaze. It's not about being right or wrong. It's about being realistic. Change is hard, especially for folks who have lived life a certain way. You need to genuinely listen to their fears. Then I'll listen, Jake promised, clenching his fist in determination. I want to ram this down their throats. I'll work with them. Mr. Hargrove sighed, the tension in his shoulders easing just a fraction. Words are nice, but actions speak louder. You want to win them over? Show them. Prove that you're in this for the long haul. Ellie suddenly piped up, like my dad with his garden. He says you have to nurture the seeds before you get flowers. Mr. Hargrove's lips twitched at her innocent wisdom, his fierceness softening. You're not wrong, kid. Jake watched the interaction, noting the change in Mr. Hargrove's demeanor. Maybe they had a chance to bridge the gap. What about you, Mr. Hargrove? Will you help me? Silence stretched between them, each second laced with anticipation. The diner had quieted, every ear tuned to this pivotal moment. Mr. Hargrove rubbed his chin thoughtfully, then shook his head slightly. I'm not an easy sell, but I may just be the gardener you need. A breath of relief slipped through Jake, but the man's next words halted his thoughts. However, first you need to face the community beyond these walls. You've got to speak to them, hear them, and be prepared for some hard truths. The weight of the task ahead settled on Jake's shoulders, heavier than before, but suddenly more resolute. I can do that. I will do that. But as he turned to Ellie, a flicker of doubt shadowed her face, and Jake couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty growing inside him. Did he truly have what it takes to take on this challenge? Just remember, Mr. Hargrove warned, his dark eyes serious. The loudest voices aren't always the ones with the best intentions. Jake's heart raced again, this time out of fear of what lay ahead. Could he really bring everyone together when some seemed so resistant? As the bell jingled, signaling another arrival, Jake's gaze shifted to the door. The air crackled with potential, and he found himself wondering if this was just the beginning of something bigger. Or was it the start of a struggle he wasn't prepared to face? The diner doors opened to reveal a group that included Ted. A challenging smirk etched on his face. As Jake's world suddenly felt unsteady, he couldn't shake the question. Would he be ready for what was coming next? Jake felt every eye in the diner shift towards the entrance as Ted sauntered in, flanked by a couple of his friends. With their loud laughter and mocking whispers, the group was a stark contrast to the quiet tension that had just enveloped the diner. Jake's heart sank a little at the sight, a flashing neon sign of the challenges ahead. "Look who's trying to play community hero," Ted called out, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "What's next? The bake sale?" The laughter that followed felt like nails on a chalkboard, grating on Jake's nerves. He glanced at Ellie, who tugged at his hand and leaned closer, sensing the shift in mood. Her trust was a small sanctuary amidst the chaos. "Why don't you step outside, Jake? We can have a friendly chat," Ted said, his smirk widening. He clearly didn't see this as just a talk. He wanted to play mind games. Jake stood up, determination tightening like a fist in his chest. He was here to prove something, not let Ted's antics drag him down. "You know what? I'll take that conversation right here," he said firmly, his voice ringing out. Mr. Hargrove's eyebrows raised slightly, impressed by Jake's sudden bravery. "A strong stance, kid. Just make sure you're ready for backlash." Jake nodded, clearing his throat to hold his ground. "I'm here to make a difference. If you're too scared to talk openly, then that's on you." Ted stepped closer, the mockery fading slightly as genuine anger flashed across his face. "Scared? Please. You're the one who should be scared. This town doesn't want your changes. They like it just fine the way it is." Jake could feel the eyes of the diner transfixed between him and Ted. The energy shifted, all tension and anticipation. "But change is inevitable and it can be good," he declared. "I'm not asking for your approval. I'm trying to get everyone involved." "A nice speech, but words are just that," Ted retorted, leaning in. "You think you know what's best for us? You've been away, kid. You don't really know the folks here. You don't know their fears." Jake's resolve weakened for a brief moment. Ted's words echoed louder than he wanted to admit. The truth stung, a reminder of the obstacles he faced. "You're right. I don't know everything," he admitted, swallowing hard. "But I'm here to learn. I'll earn their trust." A ripple of surprise ran through the diner, as people exchanged glances. Was he really laying down this challenge to Ted? Could he convince these people? Ellie squeezed his hand tighter, her innocence shining through. "I'll help you. I want to hear their fears too," she chimed in. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and even some of the patrons smiled, breaking the cloud of tension that Ted had cast. Ted rolled his eyes, but the flicker of uncertainty in his expression didn't go unnoticed. "You've got guts, I'll give you that," he shot back, hiding his discomfort behind bravado. "But good luck convincing anyone. Just don't come crying to me when they turn you away." In that moment, Jake realized the struggle with Ted was more than just a fight for respect. It was a fight for the heart of the community. He took a deep breath, readying himself for the long battle ahead. "I won't give up, Ted. I'll be talking to everyone, and when I do, it won't just be about what they fear. It'll be about hope." The collective breath of the diner shifted, as if they too could sense that this wasn't just about Jake or Ted anymore. It was about everyone who had a stake in the community. As Ted backed down, still laughing but with uncertainty lurking beneath, Jake felt a renewed spark within him. They had a mountain to climb, but he knew now they could face it together. But just as optimism edged its way back in, the bell jingled again. This time, it was a group of community members who had overheard the tension. The look on their faces hinted at a reality Jake couldn't ignore. He raised his head, meeting their gaze head-on, feeling the weight of their curiosity and skepticism. Would they see the hope he wanted to offer, or would Ted's influence keep them locked away in their fears? As the newcomer stepped forward, The question lingered in the air, heavy with possibility. Would this be a turning point, or just another hurdle? Jake held his breath as the new group of community members moved to the center of the diner. Their expressions were a mix of curiosity and wariness, like they couldn't decide whether to confront the brewing storm or simply turn away. The weight of their gaze felt heavy, pressing down on him in a way he hadn't anticipated. "Hey guys." A voice broke through, calling out from the back. It was Sam, a local farmer with a reputation for being tough but fair. "What's all this ruckus about?" Jake's heart raced. His moment was here. "I'm just trying to talk about what we want for this town," he said, trying to muster up all the confidence he could. "Change can bring us together if we let it." Sam raised an eyebrow, a thoughtful frown crossing his face. "Change, huh? Like what exactly?" The words hung in the air, waiting to be embraced or rejected. Jake glanced at Ellie, her eyes wide with hope. For a brief second, he felt bolstered, like he had someone beside him in the storm. He leaned in, conveying every ounce of sincerity he could. "Fresh ideas for the community projects and events that actually get us talking, working together. I want to hear from everyone about what they need." Ted scoffed, rolling his eyes, but Jake could see that others were beginning to listen. He pushed through the noise. "Look, I know I've been away, but I love this town just as much as you do. I'm here for all of us." A few heads nodded. Jake caught sight of Mrs. Langley, the diner's owner, glancing up from behind the counter. She had an uncanny ability to sense unrest, and her lips pursed in thought, weighing the situation. "But what makes you think you can get people to open up?" Sam fired back, crossing his arms. "We've got our own struggles, kid. The last thing we need is someone poking where it hurts," he added, glancing at Ted as if expecting him to chime in. "And that's exactly why I want to talk." Jake found his voice rising, filled with an unexpected fervor. "We don't have to stay locked in our fears. We can start sharing our stories and maybe even start healing. Change doesn't have to be bad. It can be what we need." A murmur spread through the crowd, intrigue flickering in their eyes. Ellie leaned even closer, almost as if she was channeling strength from their unity. Jake took a step forward, catching the glimmer of hope. "Let us hold a town meeting like a brainstorming session. I promise you, this isn't just another empty promise. I'm willing to put in the work to get us all involved." Another pause, and Sam's frown softened slightly. "You really think folks will show up?" he asked skeptically. "What if they just laugh it off?" "They won't." "Because this matters," Jake insisted. "We can make the changes together, ones that honor everybody's fears, but also build a better future." As he finished speaking, a palpable silence fell over the diner. Each pair of eyes held questions and doubts, yes, but also a flickering curiosity. Could he really be the spark for change? Then buzzing murmurs began to fill the air, one voice joining another. From the corner of the diner, someone chimed in. "I'm in. If you're serious, Jake, I'll help." Before long, others were agreeing, their voices quickening with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Hope threaded through the tension, pulling them together just as they started to plot their first meeting. But in the midst of it all, Jake noticed a sudden shift in Ted's expression. His bravado was starting to crack, the laughter dying down as doubt flickered in his eyes. It was as if he was weighing the loss of control he once held over the room. Just then, a voice laced with uncertainty broke through. "What if the town isn't ready for hope?" The question struck like a thunderclap, silencing the budding excitement entirely. Jake's gut twisted. Was he genuinely aiming for the impossible? As he searched for words, the weight of the collective doubt hung thick in the air. Would he be able to rally the town to embrace change? Or was this doomed to fail before it even began? The moment of truth teetered on the edge of clarity, and in that heartbeat, the swelling anticipation formed a tight knot in Jake's chest. And then he realized, this first step held more than mere hope. It could either bloom into a collective future or falter and fade away. With all eyes upon him, Jake took a deep breath, ready to choose hope again. But what if he discovered something about the town and himself he hadn't been prepared for? Jake's breath caught as the weight of the question lingered in the air like smoke. What if the town isn't ready for hope? Echoed around him, each word resonating from the back of his mind. He searched the faces of those around him, some hopeful, some skeptical. and others simply lost in thought. He could feel the swirling current of doubt trying to sweep him away. But he had to push through. Then let us be the ones to get ready. Hope starts with action, and action starts with us. His voice cracked a bit, but he pressed on. If we talk about our fears, we can find ways to confront them together. Let us not let fear win. He noticed Ellie nodding vigorously, her eyes shining with encouragement. You've got this, Jake, she whispered from beside him. The murmurs picked up again, quieter this time, but still supportive. Sam uncrossed his arms, leaning in slightly, which Jake took as a small victory. Maybe he could win over some more hearts today. Okay, Sam finally said, taking a long breath. Let us say you're right, Jake. You want to organize a meeting, fine. But what's your plan? How do you propose we share what's really bothering us? Jake felt the pulse of anxiety, but he held on to Ellie's gaze. Let us use the diner. It's home to many of us. We can center our discussion around food. Maybe a potluck? Everyone brings a dish, and we share our stories while we eat. A ripple of amusement sparked from the crowd. A small laugh from Mrs. Langley. You know, everyone here has a secret recipe or two. And everyone loves free food. It just might work. Exactly. Jake's heart lifted a little, sensing the room warming to his idea. We can set a date, make it an event. Just one night to get comfortable and talk. And if it goes well, we can follow it up with more meetings. More voices joined in, the atmosphere shifting to one of tentative excitement. I can bring my grandma's famous apple pie, someone offered, a hint of laughter in their tone. And I can make some cornbread, chimed in another. Jake smiled to himself, feeling the collective energy how it started to build, weaving together those moments of connection. Sam looked thoughtful but intrigued. All right, if you're committed, I'll show up too. Just don't blame me if it ends up being a disaster. Deal, Jake replied, unable to hide his grin. But just as the giggles and excitement stirred, Ted broke in with a smirk, masking a deeper annoyance. So, everyone's on board for a little chit-chat over dinner? Great. But let us not fool ourselves. What's a potluck going to change? Jake felt the twinge of frustration again. It's not just a potluck, Ted. It's something more. The chance to connect again, something this town has been missing. Ted scoffed, shaking his head. You're dreaming. That annoyance bubbled up again, but he pushed it down. Maybe. Jake took a deep breath, looking around. But that's better than doing nothing. The air was thick with tension again, but beneath it, something simmered: hope, excitement. He could see it flickering like embers waiting to catch fire. As they started making tentative plans for the meeting, the buzz of voices surrounded him. But something kept gnawing at Jake. A feeling that everything wasn't settled yet. Then he caught a glimpse of Ellie moving slightly away from him. Her brow furrowed and her expression oddly distant for a moment. She glanced back at him, her lips pressed tight. What is it? He asked, concern slicing through the excitement of the room. Nothing, she replied, but her eyes told a different story. Jake felt the knot in his gut tightening. Was there something deeper at play? He wanted to reach out, to comfort her, but the diner was consuming everyone's attention. He tried to shake the feeling off, but as the excitement swelled, he couldn't help but think. What if this meeting unearths more than they thought? What if it opened up wounds best left untouched? With that thought lingering in his mind, he turned back to the group, ready to usher in this new chapter for the town. But what else might he have to face? What hidden struggles might rise to the surface? Jake spent the next few days wrestling with the anticipation of the upcoming potluck. He was excited, sure, but the anxiety gnawed at him. He couldn't shake the feeling that Ellie was holding something back, and each time he tried to reach out, she seemed to sidestep his questions. It didn't help that Ted's cynical words echoed in his mind. What if everything turned into a bigger mess than he ever imagined? On the day of the potluck, the diner bustled with activity. The smell of fried chicken and cornbread wafted through the air, and laughter mingled with the clatter of dishes. Jake kept glancing toward the door, his heart racing. Would people show up? Would they really open up? When the clock struck 6, people began arriving, each one carrying a dish that told a story. Mrs. Langley brought her famous meatloaf, saying it had been passed down for generations. A couple of newcomers from the neighboring town had baked their family's traditional casserole, While a handful of kids ran around holding bags of cookies, they had make even the youngest seem to share in this sense of community. Ellie finally walked in, clutching a bowl of her mom's creamy potato salad. She looked beautiful, but there was still something in her eyes that made Jake's chest tighten. "Hey," she said, her smile a mask over the deep concern he suspected lingered beneath. "Hey, you ready?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, I guess," she replied, her voice less certain than he hoped. I hope it all works out." The diner buzzed with joy, but Jake felt the weight of Ellie's uncertainty alongside the excitement in the room. He enlisted her help to set up tables and distribute food, trying to lighten the mood. As the crowd mingled, he caught snippets of conversations. "Have you heard about the old mill? And do you think we'll ever get a new playground?" These shared concerns reflected the town's deeper wounds. When it came time to gather everyone, Jake stood at the front, nervously tapping his fingers against the table, glancing at Ellie, who stood next to him. "Okay, everyone, if I could have your attention," he called, raising his voice over the chatter. The noise shrank into anticipation. People turned their eyes towards him, and for a quick second he felt overwhelmed. "Thank you all for coming. It means a lot that you're here tonight." He took a breath, weaving the story of how they all lost touch and needed a way to reconnect. "Let us start by sharing a story about what brought us here. Or maybe something that matters to us," he said, sensing the moment shift in the dim light of the diner. As he spoke, he noticed a young woman stand up hesitantly. "I'm new here, but everyone has been so welcoming," she said. The group nodded, encouraging her to continue. "I moved here for a fresh start because things got tough where I was." Soft murmurs of understanding spread like wildfire. One by one, tales poured out the sacrifices, the dreams deferred, the hearts broken. Jake absorbed every emotion, every smile and tear. As the stories intertwined, something profound transformed in the room. They were sharing burdens, echoing feelings long buried. But then he glanced at Ellie, and a cold knot clenched his stomach. She hadn't said anything. Her tight-lipped smile had faded into something unreadable. As the evening waned, Jake knew the meeting had lit a spark in the town, but he couldn't ignore the worry gnawing at him. What would Ellie say when she finally spoke? Suddenly, Ted spoke up, breaking the warm moment. "Just keep in mind, this is a one-time thing. Life doesn't change overnight." The murmurs of agreement were scattered, but the doubt was palpable. Jake's heart raced as he turned to Ellie. "What do you think?" She swallowed, her voice trembling. "I think we have to be careful. Not everyone will be ready." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implications. What if they stirred up feelings best left undisturbed? The energy in the room shifted again, and Jake felt his heart pounding. Could he stand against doubts if they spiraled out of control? He grasped her hand, squeezing it reassuringly. Together, right? But even he questioned whether they could navigate each darkness, especially if it was Ellie's own that was yet to be revealed. With that unspoken fear lurking, they stood at the brink of a new understanding. What newfound truth awaited in the next story to be shared? The week after the potluck was a whirlwind for Jake. The once organized chatter of the diner had morphed into an ongoing dialogue across town. Folks talked more freely about their hopes and fears, making a point to share where they had felt unheard before. And yet, while everyone else was embracing the opportunity, Jake felt a persistent nagging at his heart. Ellie had been withdrawn since the meeting, each day bringing a new cloud over her playful spirit. One afternoon, he watched her from the garage as she sat at the picnic table, eyes cast down. He felt an urgency bubble inside him. This wasn't just about his goals for the community anymore. It was about her, the bond they had, the unspoken connection that seemed to be fraying. "Ellie," he called out, wiping his grease-stained hands on a rag as he approached. "Can we talk?" She didn't look up at first but then sighed and nodded, her ponytail swinging softly. "Is everything okay? You've been quiet this week," he said gently, sitting across from her. He wanted to reach out, feel that connection soften the air. "I'm trying to be okay, Jake," she replied, biting her bottom lip. "But I guess I'm scared that people will hold on to the past. Not everyone wants change." Jake felt his heart ache at her words. "I understand, but we're giving them a chance. We're doing this together." I know. She bit her lip again, something heavy in her eyes. But what if they don't want to be part of this? What if they want to keep things exactly as they are? Jake looked at her, those innocent fears echoing deeply in his heart. This was the same town he wanted to uplift. Yet he realized he had been so focused on his vision that he hadn't considered the doubts of the people who meant the most to him. So what do we do? He asked. A moment of silence passed, and she finally replied, her voice barely above a whisper. What if we take a step back and let everyone talk, not just about the hopes, but also the worries? Open a path for people to express their fears without judgment? His heart swelled with a mix of pride, admiration, and worry. You're right. We need to create space for that. You're much wiser than your age, you know that? Ellie gave a hint of a smile, a glimmer poking through the clouds. What if you led another meeting where people could just share how they feel? No expectations. Jake sat back. The thought electrified him. That is brilliant, Ellie. We can set a time for an open discussion. Just a space for sharing our feelings. Would they? She questioned, cocking her head. They will if we give them a reason to trust us, he replied firmly. Let us put this plan into motion. I promise to make it a safe space for everyone. Starting with you. Her eyes lit up as they stepped back into the rhythm. Together they set the stage for a new meeting. A night solely dedicated to feeling safe and heard. The evening arrived, taking on a nervous energy as old faces streamed into the diner. This time, there was no potluck, no distractions, just a raw, potent atmosphere buzzing with whispers and glances. Jake stood at the front again, feeling Ellie's presence beside him like an unbreakable chain. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming, he began, his voice steady. Tonight is all about listening. We're here to voice our experiences, not just our hopes for change. A hush fell over the room before someone spoke up. What if we lose what makes this home? An older gentleman sat across the diner, eyes deep with worry. This was what Jake had wanted, a space for questions, for honest responses. We can grow and keep the essence of our town, Jake encouraged. And then it came the flood of emotions, fears, worries, and insecurities typically hidden behind walls. I'm scared I won't belong anymore, one woman admitted, raising her voice to fit back in the past's confines. Another chimed in, what if these changes push us out? Without barriers now, the space became a tapestry of emotions. Voices intertwined into a symphony of truths long suppressed. Jake saw his own fears reflected in their doubts. Each concern was a thread that bound the community tighter together. Ellie held his hand tightly, and he could feel her strength replenishing his own. This was what they needed, an understanding, a mutual yearning for connection. As the night wore on, his heart swelled watching the tension slowly melt away, but it didn't stop without challenges. Ted burst in, looking smug yet somehow uncertain. What's this? A therapy session? He scoffed, arms crossed as he leaned against the door. Thought you were all about change. But this time, the voices didn't scatter or drown in fear. A ripple of defiance spread. We're here to talk, Ted, one man called out, his voice unwavering. You can stay or go, but we're reclaiming our space. Offense flickered across Ted's face. He wasn't expecting resistance. Jake felt that spark of community surge even brighter around him. This is our journey, he declared, stepping forward to face Ted. We're bringing our voices together to build something stronger. Change is inevitable, but together, we can shape it. The murmurs of agreement filled the room, drowning out Ted's mocking laughter. The tide had turned. When the meeting finally came to a close, Jake felt a weight lift off his chest, a canvas ready for strokes that would paint a brighter future. Ellie looked up at him, her eyes shimmering with pride. You did it, Jake. We did it, he corrected, putting an arm around her shoulders. They stepped out into the crisp night air, hearts lighter, feeling transformed. As they headed home together, he knew this was just the beginning. Together, they had carved out a path for change, but now it was a journey of hope, built upon trust and connection with every town member. And now for you, the audience sharing in this emotional journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that bring hope and transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, as your support means the world. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this heartfelt ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation, because this is the moment to show your support. True fans know the importance of uplifting each other through these actions. Don't wait not even one more second.